Hi and welcome to the Unquendor Guitars workshop. My name is Daniel and this is the fourth episode in the video series where I'm building my entry into the Great Guitar Build-Off 2021. In the previous episodes I made this neck, and of course the last episode was on making this body, and this episode I will be doing some final touches to this guitar body, like drilling the holes for the control knobs and the output jack, create a cover plate for the control cavity, and then glue in the neck, do some final bits of carving and fine sanding, and by the end of this episode we should have a guitar. So I start by marking out the control cavity and the positions for all the control knobs, and then use an awl to very carefully mark every position. For this guitar I'm going to use Fishman Fluence modern humbuckers, and just to make sure I always check the diameter of the shaft of these pots. The diameter of this shaft can be 8 mm or 10 mm, and Fishman provides both, and yeah, you always have to check which one is supplied with your set, and in my case it was the 8 mm one. I use my drill press or pillar drill to drill a 12 mm diameter hole for the three-way switch and 2 8 mm holes for the control pots. And for the output jack I drill a 12 mm hole as straight through the body as I can, and use a stepper drill to make the countersink for the output jack, so the output jack sits nice and flush in the guitar body. Making the control cavity cover plate is straightforward. I mark the outline using a template and cut it out on the bandsaw. And of course I use my router table, a template and a flush trimming bit to finalize the outline of the control cavity cover plate. And once I have the final outline, I take the cover plate to my spindle sander thicknesser trick and sand it to the correct thickness. And of course do some fine sanding by hand as well. After a bit of going back and forward, I should have a nice fitting cover plate. And the last thing to do is drill some mounting holes and give them a little countersink. And again some more sanding. I always try to do the best sanding job I can, and I'm always scared I've missed a spot. With the cover plate nicely done, it's time to look at gluing in the neck. But before I really glue in the neck, I do a final check, because this is the last opportunity I have to make any adjustments to the alignment and the angle of the neck. So first check if the neck is still nice and straight. Which it is. And then check if the angle is still correct. It shouldn't have changed, but you never know. Just to make sure, I always check this one last time. And it's perfect. So there's only one thing left to do before I can actually glue in the neck, and that's to remove the block at the end of the heel. So remove this section to make room for the bridge pickup, of course. So I'm going to mark it, cut it out using my Japanese saw and my bandsaw, and then it's time to glue in the neck. I have everything prepared to glue in this neck, and I made sure the surfaces on the heel of the neck are nice and clean. I just wiped them off very lightly with a fine sanding pad. Made sure the neck pocket is nice and clean. I've got my glue ready and a little block and some grease-free paper to help me press in the recess of the heel into the neck pocket. And of course I have a clamp at the ready. So yeah, let's start by applying some glue to the neck pocket. I like to use a brush to apply my glue, and I try to apply as less glue as I can get away with, so it won't accumulate underneath the heel of the neck, causing it to tilt to an incorrect angle. And I like to do a little check inside the pocket. Nice and flush. And now with the neck glued in, I leave it to dry overnight, and tomorrow I can blend the heel of the neck in with the body, do a final pass of sanding and prepare this guitar for finish. It's the next day, so let's remove the clamp and do the last bit of carving on this guitar. We have a guitar! And blending in the edge of the guitar body with the heel of the neck can be a bit scary, because you don't want to accidentally hit your guitar neck with your rasp or your file while doing this carve. But when you're careful and you take it slow, you should end up with a nice result. Yeah, and you might have guessed, after finishing the comfort carve or the heel joint, yeah, it's time to do some more sanding. After carving the neck joint, or what I like to call the easy access carve, I sanded the entire guitar one last time using one of these very fine abrasive pads, and I think these are amazing. And as you can see, I've already masked the entire fretboard, and that's because I'm going to apply the first coat of finish. This guitar I'm going to finish with a hard wax oil, and if you're familiar with my channel and seen my previous builds, you know this is my go-to finish. I really like the look and feel of oil finish on my guitars, and the benefit of a hard wax oil is that it's basically an oil and wax finish all in one. Very easy to apply. I've used brushes, rollers, foam brushes, a piece of a t-shirt, and this time I'm going to try to use only a piece of tissue paper and going to apply a lot of very thin layers until I get the result I'm after. Yeah, this finishing process speaks for itself. It's a matter of applying the hard wax oil and make sure you wipe it down thoroughly so you don't have any build-up, and keep repeating it over and over again each day. There was a slight discoloration on the alder, so I sanded the entire binding back to bare wood and applied a couple of layers of hard wax oil. And after a week of applying a layer of hard wax oil each day, this is the end result. I just finished the most difficult part on any guitar build, and that's waiting patiently for the finish to cure. The hard wax oil I use needs to cure for about 7 days before it's fully hardened and I can start polishing this guitar. And so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take a very fine steel wool and just lightly rub the entire guitar to make sure it's nice and smooth all over, and especially where I had the masking tape on the neck, there's a little edge you can feel with your fingertips. I can remove this very easily using some steel wool. And then I'm going to use some micro crystalline wax and a tea towel to really buff out this guitar. And this should leave me with a semi-gloss, maybe glossy, but still open port finish on this guitar. So I hope it will look stunning. Again, pretty straightforward. I just wipe on a bit of microcrystalline wax, let it harden for about 20 minutes, and then take a cotton tea towel and polish it to the highest sheen I can get it. Yeah, the finish is done, and I hope this shows up on camera. I think so, but I have a semi-gloss to maybe even a glossy surface, and the guitar still feels like a piece of wood. It retained all the open pores of this marvelous Cerakote, and yeah, a nice shiny back as well for the alder, and I'm really pleased. And this is how I like to finish my guitars. I don't like a plasticky or glass-like feel to a guitar. It still has to feel like a piece of wood, albeit very smooth. So yeah, pretty pleased with how this one turned out. Last thing I need to do in this episode is I'm going to use some shielding paint and paint in the pickup cavities and the control cavities to give them a nice and black appearance. Not really because I'm afraid of interference, because this guitar is going to have active pickups, but just because I like the finished and professional look when the pickup cavities are painted black. Yeah, and there's not much to say about painting these cavities black, other than explaining maybe why I do this after finishing the guitar, and that has to do with spills. Now with the guitar completely finished and nicely polished, as soon as I spill a drop of this black shielding paint, I can easily wipe it off, and I don't have to be scared of the paint bleeding into the wood or creating stains I need to sand out. And now the guitar is truly finished with the nice black cavities. It's not really necessary, but I think it gives just a bit of extra detail to the guitar. So yeah, I'm very pleased with how this one turned out. This is also where I'm going to leave it for this week's episode, unfortunately. Yeah, as always, if you liked it, let me know by leaving a like. And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you get notified when I upload something new. Speaking of something new, next week's episode will of course be mounting all the hardware, and by the end of that episode I should have a playable instrument. So I hope to see you all there, but until then, have a nice week.